pushing every nickel now. Even if we don't fight, bodies hit the ground. I spit the sound of a million fists finna pound. I'm in the crowd till this whole thing switch round. My brain's on temporary disconnect. I shoot my mouth off, I can't find my pistol yet. You can call this music disrespect, cause it'll slap you in your face at your local discotheque. Mr. Green with your missiles and rockets. My paycheck burns a hole in your pocket. You told the judge put my name on the docket. Meeting in the break room, here's what we plotted. Let's fight, let's smash, let's win. We gon' fight, we gon' smash, let's in. Let's fight.
Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 469 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about this epic tweet from some anonymous Bitcoiner. And it was pretty good. I mentioned it yesterday, but I read the full thread this morning. And it's talking about Marxists using inversion to attack the system, which seems to be what Bitcoin and Core is doing now. And it's kind of funny because people will ask, oh, but what about the accusation that Knots is centralized, or Knots is against free speech because it's censorship. And it's funny because the accusation is actually the confession. So when Core accuses Knots of being centralized, it's really confessing that Core itself is trying to dictate to the community, to the network, to the nodes, what they can and can't do, instead of allowing them to just set their filters as they choose, which is what they've been doing for the last 10 years. They want to basically disempower. I don't even know if that's a word, but the nodes are currently empowered to set their own filters, and they want to challenge and remove that power. And the accusation of censorship is hilarious, because the number one principle for any free society is that of freedom of association. So if I want to be friends with a certain type of person, if I want to do business with a certain type of person, I can choose to do that or not. However, Core wants to remove the ability of the nodes to decide who they want to associate with, what types of transactions they want to relay to the network. Yes, we understand that if the majority of the network decides to do what they're going to do, we're all just going to have to, to download that transaction or accept that that transaction has been validated. But I don't have to participate in it, right? If the whole world wants to go to hell in a handbasket, I don't have to help. So I think that's kind of funny. And this post by 14G23H34 sounds like their Wi-Fi password. I thought was pretty good, and it's worth a read. I just reposted it, but maybe I'll link it in the comments section of this live. And so the song choice was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, is a little bit of a troll, because Tom Morello and Boots Riley, as far as I can tell, are just raging communists. So commies make better music than they do common sense. So they got a few bangers out there. And they like to talk about resistance and revolution. But it's kind of hilarious that every revolutionary turns conservative once they get into power, and now all of a sudden it's all about conserving power. But just to poke I don't know if it's the opposite side of the political spectrum, but conservatives can eat a dick too, because what have conservatives ever conserved? Not a damn thing. They just keep drawing lines in the sand, and then every time someone crosses that line, they just take a step back and draw a new line in the sand and pretend like they're conserving something. So Bitcoin is the first thing that has ever been conservative, but it's not enough that Satoshi made it the way, got it set up, and it's just free from threat. I'm still pretty confident that it'll remain decentralized and secure, but it's not going to happen by accident. So we're going to need more knots node runners out there. And it's even motivated me to maybe I'll start mining. And my technical ability is woefully lacking. But and I don't even know what I can do with my node. I mean, I got it set up, and then I just patted myself on the back, and it's under the desk. And every once in a while, I hear it burring, so I know it's still working. But I mean, I haven't even really made a transaction since I've had the node, so I haven't really needed to use it to verify. But I guess that'll be fun. Maybe that'll be a new rabbit hole to go down if I I make little small DCA purchases of Bitcoin, and I really don't take it off the exchange until it's until it's a larger number than I would feel comfortable walking around with, having cash in my wallet or something, and then I'll withdraw it to the to cold storage. But I don't sit there, and if I buy $25, every Friday, me and my son buy $25 worth of Bitcoin, and I don't just like immediately remove the $25. I let it accumulate a little bit. But maybe that'll be fun. Maybe that'll be fun to use the node to verify the transaction or something. So that might be fun. All right, I don't want to harp on this too much, and strategy is just kind of hovering around. It's been increasing a little bit over the past week, but it's not doing anything amazing. So I'm sure there won't be much I need to do in the account. So we'll just check it just for the sake of the video. And I got tagged in a post on how I decide how and when to roll. And I really make that, well, it's not that I make the decision when I open it, but you should already know what your plan is when you open the contract. You should know whether you're just going to let shares get called away, or whether you're just going to suck it up, pay to roll so that you don't lose the shares, or whether you're going to keep some shares and long calls or something in reserve to pay to roll. What's up, strategy dude? All right, so let's get it on. Here we go. So this is the account that I sold some aggressive weekly covered calls, and it looks like they're about ready to roll. So anything under like 350 would be ready to roll in less than half of the time. What's up, Buffalo? And so it is Wednesday. So half of the trading week is gone, and more than half of the option has decayed. So it could be ready to roll. But if I look at the expected move, there's nothing for me to roll down to unless I want to be really aggressive and roll down to like inside the expected move. And so this is a little bit of a weird phenomenon. If you look at the theta acceleration curve, sometimes there's a lot of theta that decays maybe over the weekend. And then theta kind of slows down a little bit between maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then it kind of holds on to a good chunk of its value overnight from Thursday to Friday. And every once in a while, sometimes I'll just put a covered call on on Thursday because it's like it's still kind of holding on to this value. So there's nothing really for me to roll this to. So I think the decision is basically whether I want to take this off or not. And I think I trimmed one of the positions off, so I think I'll just go ahead and trim one more. And then if the price runs back up, maybe I'll add another position back on. I don't know that I would necessarily call this capitulation. We've got another week before Labor Day. I don't know if all the traders are back to work by now or not. And I don't want to harp too much on charts, but we are trading below the 200-day moving average now, which is not good. So it's not that I necessarily put a lot of stock into these charts, but there are millions of people who do. So to a certain extent, the charts can be meaningful because people believe they are. So there might be people out here right now that are like, oh, okay, now we're behind below the 200, and they'll just start, buying down here and maybe trimming some position here. And that'll probably continue until those shorts get wrecked. And, then we start trading above the 200, and then maybe we go vertical or whatever. But I think it's just common sense that if you want to be trading at 400, 500, 6, 7, 1,000, we have to be above this line, right? That's kind of obvious. So there's no telling whether we have to see 250 again or 275 again before we get liftoff. And to be honest, there's no reason why the bull market can't be over. I mean, it seems like there's way too many catalysts for it to be over for Bitcoin and strategy. And strategy even has the additional catalyst of the S&P 500 potentially that Bitcoin doesn't. So that's kind of another feather in the cap, or I guess tailwinds that strategy has that Bitcoin doesn't, right? Like Bitcoin's not getting included in ETFs. I don't know how long it's been since they released STRC, but it almost just kind of seems like it's time for another preferred to be rolled out. Or maybe they know what they want to roll out, but maybe they're waiting for another week or two for the S&P 500 committee to decide before they announce the next preferred offering. I don't know if there's a war game scenario where they don't want to introduce anything new to the market prior to the committee. I mean, who knows? I'm sure they have a plan. They kind of act like, and I know sometimes people say the S&P 500 needs strategy. Strategy doesn't need the S&P 500. But there's no way in hell that the strategy execs don't want to be in the S&P 500. Like they want to just dance on the corpses of some of the Mag 7 that was taking their lunch for so many years, like Microsoft. And some of it is going to be Bitcoin related. Why Microsoft starts to go down the shitter. And maybe it just doesn't circle all the way down the drain, but it's definitely going to lose its position as the preeminent software company. I think it was Elon is he loves his fucking jokes, but I think he's gonna call the company Macro Hard or some shit like that, and they're basically just gonna have AI writing code. And if you think about it, a company like Microsoft is just ripe for disruption. They seem like they're a monopoly. They seem like they're untouchable. But what do they really offer? They're just a behemoth, but like, are they innovative? Um, so if Elon Musk strings together a few AI bots that can just spit out software, I think he wants to like create video games and shit. And like, if the entire company is just bots, like, where's the cost in that? Like, they have no overhead whatsoever other than the energy requirements, and energy is going to zero for a number of reasons. The cost of energy is going to zero, I should say. And so it just seems like Microsoft was primed for a fall. And man, was that a win-win scenario for Michael Saylor to pitch Microsoft on buying Bitcoin? Because if he convinces them to buy Bitcoin and it saves the company, then he gets to be like the magnanimous benefactor that like turns the other cheek and saves his mortal enemy or whatever. Basically the bully that bullied him on the playground in elementary school, now he gets to turn around and like offer him a fucking job. I think there was some kind of story like that was running around. I'm sure it was a fictional story, but like, you're the kid that was getting bullied, and then your bully shows up to apply for a job at your company, and like, you interview the guy that bullied you or whatever. Some karma type shit like that. So that's scenario one, is that he actually saves the company and he looks like the apex benefactor. Or they spit in his face like they did, and then they have a just embarrassing fall from grace, and he gets to tap dance on their grave and laugh at the top of the S&P 500. So if you want to be at the top of the S&P 500 and show everybody who's boss, you got to actually get in. So they can act like they don't care, but they care, and I care. Like, I need I need my bags pumped. So with that being said, oh, we got some more chats going on now. Let's see. Buffalo runs a Lightning node, and most of my node related activity is related to that. So that was, what? I mean, I'm not sold on the whole, okay, when Strategy has 1 million, 2 million Bitcoin, okay, now they have to earn a yield on it. What if could they just be like half of the Lightning network and just be kind of quietly absorbing tons of sats, facilitating the Lightning network? Let's see. I have a spare wallet connected to my node to validate my transaction and holdings. Man, I guess I was kind of like a fake IT employee, because my specific skill set was in so it was limited to one piece of software. Well, there was a couple that I actually worked on, but towards the end, it was Cerner software. And not only Cerner software, but a specific niche within Cerner software, which was the lab information systems. And like, it wasn't writing code. So like, the software already exists, and I would just be like customizing the database for specific, hospitals or whatever they wanted. So my IT knowledge was so specific and specialized that it's almost embarrassing. Like I don't even feel like a real IT person. I mean, I can run fucking antivirus software and and clean up my own shit. Like, my dad asks me for help, and I can usually help him with whatever he needs. But when I talk to like real IT people that know how to code and they know how to, set up local networks and all that bullshit, I'm just like, whatever. That's not my thing. And so I actually had a little bit of trouble setting up my knots node, not because it's particularly hard, but when you're starting from scratch and I'm like, okay, I have to download Sparrow. Okay. I have to download Tor. Okay. I have to download this. I have to download that. I had to download this bullshit. And then for some weird reason, I actually didn't need Tor, and I was able to just do whatever I needed to do with my non-Tor browser. But maybe you need the Tor for, I don't know, was it super anonymous secret squirrel bullshit? So there were all these little side quests that I had to kind of go through to finally get the whole damn thing done. And it was kind of a pain in the ass, but it ended up feeling good, and I felt kind of accomplished once I got it all done. And there's weird shit that you have to do to even like get the knots software available. You have to like scroll down and click something and unclick it and then refresh, and then it's actually downloadable. Anyway, there's all this weird shit that you have to do, and it just made me feel kind of inadequate. Maybe I'm Gen X, but like Gen Xers are the new boomers, so getting long in the tooth. What's up, Trollstein? Just joined. What are we cooking today? I'm just trash talking Bitcoin Core a little bit. Buffalo says, my gut tells me we have another dip ahead of us. Yeah, this just doesn't feel painful enough. Like, and maybe we're just dead inside, because after you've been through a cycle or two, or you've just held through the highs and lows, like, this sucks, but this is only like 20% off all-time highs, right? So it can get way worse than this. What's up, Dana? You can get yield on Bitcoin running a Lightning node, but there are risks and costs involved. Oh, okay. So I didn't realize there were risks. I mean, I guess you have to lock that Bitcoin to open the channel. Huh? What would be the risk? Also have a couple of bit axes and an S19 for heating my garage. I run public pool on my node to solo mine. Yeah, I got a bit axe for my son, which he moved, and I don't think he has it reconnected. But I had him in a mining pool just because, I mean, the lottery is interesting, but he could run that damn thing for fucking years and never hit. So, and so I had him mining in a pool on Ocean, but it earns so few sats that I don't even know if he earned enough to be able to withdraw it off of his pool. So, but anyway, it was actually super fun for the both of us to even figure out how to get it working. But now I'm kind of motivated to run something a little more powerful. Let's see. Guns Do Yoga says, how did you get into that role? Being a maintainer for hospitals, IT is good. Were you Epic certified? Yeah, I did get Epic certification in inpatient, and I didn't actually get the certification for another course that they sent me to. But yeah, I did work on Epic for a couple of years before I went back to working on Cerner full time, and kind of like backed my way into that. So just more ammunition for being what is it called? Imposter syndrome, because I worked in the laboratory, and then when the lab information specialist quit and they couldn't find a replacement, they were like, oh, hey, you good with computers? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, well, you want this job? Like, okay. So, they sent me to some training, and that was actually in Meditech. So it went Meditech, Cerner, Epic, back to Cerner was kind of my career arc. And a lot of the people that were that I worked with were in the same way. So they would become nurses, and then when the hospital would upgrade to Epic, they would go to the training, and now all of a sudden they were like, now they're involved in IT. It was like, okay, well, I'm not a nurse anymore. I just try to be the subject matter expert for the nurses and make sure that the systems are set up properly, so the nurses can do their job well. But yeah, so I did that for the lab, but it kind of backed my way into it. And so since I backed my way into it, I would be surrounded by all these people who actually went to college for IT and then ended up in the same position that I'm in. And I don't know 90% of the shit that they know. And of course, I know the lab workflow, so that would help me in that sense. But um, sometimes you just don't feel like I feel like a real boy. I feel like Pinocchio with a wooden arms and legs and just waiting to be exposed as a fraud or whatever. But kind of felt the same way even working in the lab, because I got my military training. And since at that time you didn't even graduate with a certificate or anything, it was just kind of like, okay, here's your graduation certificate, but it wasn't like you were a certified laboratory professional. You could go and use that to test your way into it. So sometimes you would be looked down on by your civilian counterparts because you didn't go to a real college and go through all of that bullshit. And now I'm in the financial space, and I taught myself how to trade options. So again, I didn't go to finance school and get like the real training. And so it's kind of like I kind of just backed my way into that role. And I remember the first time I was on True North's episode, I was like, okay, well, the first time I open my mouth and say something fucking stupid, they're going to be like, why did we ask this guy to be on this show? But it ended up working out. What's up, AD? Hoping more and more people get knots up. The video from Matthew Cratter exposing the core devs attacking nodes really pissed me off. Mara and other bad actors need to go. Yeah, I swore off Mara months ago, maybe years ago. They're kind of on my will not own list. I run the wheel on CLSK and Riot, I would say 90% of the time, but I don't have anything against Iron or Wolf or what's the other one? Hut. I don't. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not saying they're like USDA approved. I don't know anything good about them necessarily, but I haven't heard anything bad like that would disqualify them. But Mara, I mean, the first red flag for them was they started mining Caspa. So I was like, okay, you're not a serious Bitcoiner. And so it doesn't really surprise me that they're one of the bad actors in the space, mining spam. And I think there's going to have to be a reckoning in the Bitcoin community. Like I went to Bitcoin Vegas, but it was sponsored by Bitcoin Magazine, and they're not really instilling a whole lot of confidence. And so I'm probably going to have to start to vet the people I associate with professionally, or like even like conferences that I attend and stuff like that. Even with True North, the next time we do some kind of public thing, we're going to have to make sure that we don't just accept sponsors from anybody with some fiat welfare money. The first event that we did, I mean, you could just press a button and buy a sponsor link, or and get put on the web page or whatever. But as we get a little bit more organized and official, we're probably going to have to make sure that we're vetting people for shitcoinery. Core people attacking not so. Yeah, I got it. Buffalo closing and opening channels and forced closures in a high fee environment. With strategy scale, I think the costs are minimized though. Huh. So it costs to open the channel. Interesting. All right, so I took off one position, got paid 700, and I kept 500 for myself. And I guess if we get a little pump or whatever, maybe I'll add them on. Or when these expire on Friday, maybe I'll put all 4 of them back on. I probably have, all told, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 delta worth of long exposure. And so these very aggressive weeklies is only on maybe 20% of the total position. So I don't mind being this aggressive with it. But the 45-day expiration ones, they're not ready to roll. The value has not decayed enough to make this a worthwhile roll. I don't know. Do I even have to? Let me see. If I just click this and close it. Okay, so maybe I don't even have to select the account unless I open a new trade. I don't know. The user interface on this is a little bit annoying sometimes. All right, 1,300 shares, 13 covered calls. Nothing to do there but sit and wait. Performance covered calls, same deal. All of my longs are performing horribly, which makes sense because it's been August. So it's been 9 months since we had our FOMO inducing euphoria event in November. Tons of correction, and then showed some sign of life, and then we're just still chopping. And so yeah, I'm placing a lot of chips on one more pump at least. However, if it doesn't happen, and I lose all of this, all of these long call monies, I don't want to say that it doesn't matter, but in a sense it kind of doesn't, because I funded all of these upside positions with the covered calls that I sold. So even if I lose all of this money, it was only money that I even have because of the positions that I sold in the first place. So I'm kind of betting that all of these short positions will eventually get wrecked, and these long positions will overcompensate. You can even include these poor man's covered calls here. Will compensate for the wreckedness that I get on these shorts. So it remains to be seen whether that will actually work out in my favor. Clearly, over the last 6-7 months, it hasn't, because I've captured a certain amount of premium here. But I would be willing to bet that I have lost more on the longs over the last 6 months than I have captured on the shorts. I didn't keep like a meticulous spreadsheet. I kind of just eyeball my P&L at this point. So if the bull market is over, and actually someone chastised me the other day on the YouTube comments for even talking about 4-year cycles, and like they were kind of hinting that maybe there was another rabbit hole I needed to go down, but they didn't really point me in the right direction. They're just like, just go research it. So it sounded like they were saying that the 4-year cycles, not only, it's not that the 4-year cycles are either over or not over, it's that they kind of never existed, and maybe there was another reason why Bitcoin seemed to be performing on a 4-year cycle. And so I really couldn't tell if they were just saying it's going to be a super cycle, or whether they were saying the bull market was over. I really didn't quite get it, but so I should probably clarify that I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve in the 4-year cycles, but the way that I think about this is my account has reached a size where as long as it just doesn't go to zero, I'm good to go. And if we get a super cycle and some of my shares get called away, that's fine. Like that doesn't hurt me. That just means I missed out on a little bit of upside. However, if we get another 75% correction in Bitcoin, and it takes strategy down with it, if I'm in leveraged positions when that happens, I can get hurt pretty badly. So it makes sense for me to act as if I think that the Bitcoin 4-year cycles will continue, even if that's completely incorrect. Because it's by making that decision, I can only be hurt by not making as much money as I would if I didn't make that assumption. But if I make the opposite assumption and I'm wrong, then I get crushed. So to me, it really just doesn't matter whether it's the 4-year cycles are real or whether the super cycle is coming. The only real danger is if Bitcoin's price goes down next year and I own a bunch of these long calls. So I'll take my core strategy position into a potential bear market. And I don't know if that's going to be somewhere between 1 to 3,000 shares. I had originally thought about trying to take 3,000 shares, but yeah, somewhere between 1 and 2 might be closer to where I land, because I'm so bullish on Tesla and Cybercab that it might be worth trimming half the position and just kind of go 50-50 strategy in Tesla. So that's kind of my overall my long-term plan for the next 10-20 years is basically strategy in Tesla. I'm banking on them being number 1 and number 2 in the S&P 500 in 10 years. So I don't really think I would even need any other positions. And I'll still fool around with the mining stocks just for kind of demonstration purposes. But yeah, I think strategy in Tesla will get me to a point where money just doesn't really matter anymore. All right, the IRA, I've already kind of split this one up into a strategy Tesla ratio. It's, what is this? It's like 3/4. It's like 3/4 strategy and 1/4 Tesla. They're both trading at about the same price. So I've got 100 Tesla shares. I got 300 strategy shares. But I've got 4 Core-munist covered calls here, and I got 3. Yeah. So I'm still overweight on strategy and kind of waiting for that next pump to the end of 2025, 2026, and then I'll rebalance into some ratio. I don't know if it's going to be 50-50 or if it'll be 75 Tesla, 25 strategy. If we get another one of these blow off tops, I probably won't be able to help but trim a ton of position off, because failing to do that in November was way too painful riding that correction down. So the scars of that are still kind of fresh in my trading psyche. Tesla's running, so my covered calls are getting wrecked, so that's good news. So nothing to do but wait there. The strategy positions, they're only down a little bit, so I'll have to wait another 2-3 weeks on those, potentially. No shares in this account, just poor man's covered calls. Same deal, not ready to roll. Oh, and this is where we started. So I already took off this one position. Let's check the 5K account. Probably nothing to do here because I'm running the wheel in CLSK, and nothing to do but sit here and wait to see if this 9.5 put gets assigned. It's trading at 970. That could very well happen. And to see if my covered calls expire worthless and whether I'm going to get to roll those out. You can see these two positions. I've basically got this formed into a very narrow strangle, actually. I didn't notice it until just now. But I've been rolling the covered calls down closer to the share price. But I've also been using my spare cash to sell cash secured puts. So I've got like a 50-cent wide strangle going here. Doesn't really matter. I just kind of noticed it. So my average cost basis is $10.91 a share. But if you're noticing, I'm actually selling the $10 strikes. So on paper, it looks like this I would potentially be selling these at a loss. But if we go back into the history, if I really wanted to know what my cost basis was, I'd have to look at this and like, okay, I sold this one for 10. Sold a put for 8. Whatever. Rolled it and got paid 8. Rolled it and got paid 29. Rolled it and got paid 10. Sold strikes for 35. So my true cost basis is 1091 minus some number. And when I first started, I would put together a whole spreadsheet and like really make sure I knew, okay, my true cost basis is really $10.15. So I got to at least sell the 10.5 strike to not lose money. But now I just kind of eyeball it and kind of figure it just works itself out. Trollstein says, I'll scrub anyone now. Say the word and I'll remove the shitters. Let's see. Guns says, thoughts on allocating to Metaplanet prior to options market. Think they will have more vol since there's no convertible bond on their books like strategy. The converts negatively impacted the price. So I have nothing negative to say about Metaplanet, but I also haven't really done the research. Like, my research at this point is just like, do I like the guys running it? Do I like Dylan? Yes. So I don't own a Metaplanet position, and I think it's a near certainty that I would as soon as they get a liquid options market. But you're saying allocating prior to the options market. Yeah, I don't really know about what an options market would do to the price. But yeah, I think Dylan's extremely capable and intelligent, and as long as he's working for those guys, I think they'll do well. Buffalo, see, run a Lightning node to accept Bitcoin as payment in my restaurant. There are easier custodial options, but they didn't really exist when I started 2.5 years ago. One more pump. We are gonna make it. Yeah, if we don't get one more pump, I'll be licking my wounds, but it'll be fine. But yeah, long story short, nothing really to do here, but kind of sit on these for another couple days. I think I sold these for 14. They're still worth 13, so that's good news. All right, we are all caught up on the chats. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And I don't know if it's just the sentiment or if there's new algorithms or what, but it was kind of wild because Restream would show me how many people are watching. Oh, so that's only... Is Restream only showing me the YouTube numbers? It says 13 people are watching the video. And it used to be like, I don't know, 500 on average. But when I hover over this, it's just showing me the YouTube views, which YouTube was the smallest number of views in relation to X. So, great. One more thing I'll probably have to contact customer support about and see if my statistics are being calculated correctly. Got to pump up those rookie numbers. All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be good, y'all.